The movie starts in Prague with pilots telling ground control that an unidentified object is flying nearby. But down amongst the people, there is a woman, Flora, who's barefoot and has a baby in her hands. The pilots are still trying to find the object, but can only see it on the radar. Flora is looking around and finds a strange symbol that somehow makes her feel safe. The pilots see the object with lights, but still can't identify what it might be, and it's headed right for them, and suddenly, everything goes wrong with the electronics. Meanwhile, a mysterious light appears over Flora and makes her fall into the river with the child. That's when the plane stabilizes, and the object has mysteriously disappeared, but the pilots are sure they've seen it. After some time, Martin is driving his Ferrari along the countryside with Terry, his daughter. They're headed towards the cottage, and it turns out that Terry's mom has been gone for some time, and the two are glad to be spending time with each other. They reach the cottage, but Terry isn't too happy to be here on vacation because she is reminded of her mother. Martin comes over because he understands her pain and comforts her. That night, the two are having a wonderful dinner, and Martin is trying to convince her to work at his company, but she's met a guy now and he is happy for her, but still, he's her dad, so he wants to know more about her man, Robert. But it's time for bed, so Terry leaves. Suddenly, the lights start flashing and sparking, so Martin gets up to take a look outside. Terry has also noticed it, but goes back to bed. But then Martin notices some lights moving behind the house, but thinks nothing of it. Martin is reminded about his time with his wife, which quickly turns into a nightmare, waking him up to the sound of his car alarm going off. There is a blinding light coming from outside, and when looks out, the entire place is going crazy, but he doesn't notice the creepy arm behind him in the window. He runs over to find Terry, but the door is open, and an earthquake is hitting the house, so he runs over to her room and breaks down the door, but Terry is nowhere to be found. He sees Terry outside, slowly walking towards the light, with the creepy hands about to take her. Martin grabs his gun and follows her outside, but she doesn't listen to his call, and just goes deeper and deeper into the forest. She starts to run, and he follows her with a flare and finds her standing in front of some lights from a strange ship. Martin then gets dragged away by an invisible force until he slams into a tree and passes out. Martin then wakes up in the hospital confused. He calls over a nurse, but he only wants to know if Terry is okay, but she's not there. Later, the doctor comes over and tells him about his concussion and other injuries, but Martin only wants to leave and find his daughter. He then notices a man standing by the window who introduces himself as Agent Ray Bowie, so all the others leave. Martin only wants to find his daughter, but Ray tells him that he has lost the cottage. Ray finds the whole situation very mysterious. Ray finally tells him that they haven't found Terry. A nurse comes in, so Ray has to leave so Martin can get some drugs for his pain. As soon as she leaves, Martin pulls out the needle and gets dressed quickly. He notices all the people waiting for him and Ray looking at the photos of the scene. They notice him, so they decide to go inside, but Martin is gone. They follow him outside, but don't spot him hiding behind a small ledge. After they leave, Ray manages to get to his company and into his office. He searches for Ray on the internet but doesn't find anything, so he just grabs some cash and heads back out to his car. He drives down that same road, trying to look for some kind of news as he keeps driving down the long stretch of road. Now it's nighttime, but there is a helicopter above surveilling the area, telling him to stop because the area is restricted, but he drives past it anyway. At the cottage, a large-scale investigation is going on when Martin arrives. He can't believe this is happening again, because the same thing went down when his wife disappeared. Ray finds him looking and comes up with a question, but Martin remembers what happened. He tells Ray about the hands that took Terry, but Ray thinks Terry was just mad at him and they had a fight because he took a shot at his car door. There are also pictures of blood, and Ray is about to have him arrested when the lights suddenly turn off, helping Martin escape from the officers. They shoot and chase him into the woods as he runs past the trees and into a wooden barn where he sees the same strange symbol, but he gets caught by them, and despite him fighting them off, Ray knocks him out. The next morning, Martin wakes up and makes his way back to the cottage, but there is no trace of the people from last night ever being there. He makes his way in and heads for Terry's room, hoping to find something. He doesn't seem to find anything unusual, except the window not opening and water near it. He goes back downstairs to his car, paints the strange symbol on it, and decides to drive away from the cottage. He calls his business partner partner to tell him to not trust Ray and his men, and he needs some days to find his daughter. Martin is now in a cafe trying to find something about alien abductions. He sees a video of the strange occurrence with Flora and the light. He notices a weird noise coming from the back, but he continues to search until he finds a name, Johanna. So he writes down the number and heads for the phone to call. When he gets to it, he finds a bird and gets some crazy visions involving the symbol. Meanwhile, Ray and the other agents get to the company to search it. Martin calls the number and talks to Johanna about the symbol in the UFO, and she confirms everything that he's been experiencing. Ray has found Martin, and when Johanna knows where Martin has been this whole time, she tells him to run. Ray and the agents walk into the cafe, and Martin starts to fight them, but Ray is too strong for him until he takes the gun and uses it to take the tablet and escape with the bird. Outside, he drops the gun and chooses to run away. That night, Martin is at home and calls Johanna to tell her about the things he's found on the tablet. Ray has been tracking his family since his wife disappeared 2 years ago. There are also a lot more cases on it with people labeled unchosen. There is also a symbol left over all the crime scenes. As he's talking, Ray is getting the call traced and finds his location. Johanna knows this and tells him to hang up and gives him a location where they could meet. They find him near a river and grab him, but it turns out to not be Martin. Martin, meanwhile, is found by Johanna, who seems to recognize him from somewhere. He throws his phone in the river and gets in the car with Johanna and Jacek. They get to the woods and the car stops, so Jacek can lead the agents away. They are going through the woods as Martin tells Johanna about the incident. Johanna explains that people like her and Martin are the unchosen, the people who weren't taken by the aliens. A man named Lance has been finding them and bringing them together, and that's where they're headed to find out why Martin is so important. Johanna remembers the incident on the plane and wakes up to the same blinding lights as Martin, and she sees him running downstairs. She sees everything that happened to Martin on that day. She wakes up in the morning with Martin calming her down. Things aren't okay, so she quickly gets up to continue the journey, and he follows close behind. As they walk, she tells him about all the different types of aliens, like the Greys and their masters, who are usually in the ships. But there are also hybrids, which are aliens crossed with humans. Suddenly, Lance shows up and is introduced to Martin. They get inside the safe house and see technology given to Lance by the aliens. Lance is hoping to find a way to talk to the aliens with the help of Martin. After staring at the screen for a while, Martin starts getting these visions again. He is spooked, but Lance calms him down and promises to leave him alone until he's ready to try again. Martin sits back down to give it a try. At the base camp, Martin meets Andre and the rest of the Unchosen that Martin recognizes from the tablet. They were all with a loved one when the aliens came to abduct them. Martin doesn't care about their little group and is only here to find his daughter, so Lance takes him away to talk. Lance tells him that Johanna is something more than an Unchosen because she was abducted and then returned with her memory wiped, which is why she can't remember anything of her past. This gives Martin hope of getting his daughter back, but he is the key. Lance thinks Martin can communicate with one specific alien. The aliens are here and more are coming, and they are creating hybrids that Ray thinks will be sleeper soldiers for when the aliens finally invade. Lance thinks they're coming to just take back the hybrids to their planet. Martin finds Johanna and they talk about his wife, who he doesn't remember at all, along with her photos being gone. They both have higher frequencies than normal, which is what attracts them to each other. Later, Jacek was driving down the road when Ray's men stopped him, and Ray knocked him out to get him for interrogation. Meanwhile, Lance is instructing Martin on how to meditate using breathing and calm himself to get tuned into the communication frequency. He eases into the state and gets connected to his higher self. Martin finds himself walking down a road and mentions Terry because he's looking for her. He sees the ship asking to remember and sees Terry's face, which is when he wakes up. The next morning, things were calm at the safe house compound until the cars carrying the agents showed up. Ray gets everyone ready and they breach through the gate, storming the place with a few guys. Everyone inside is having a normal day while Martin is trying to meditate and communicate with the aliens alongside Lance and the others. After getting into position and planting a bomb, bomb, the remaining agents drive through the gate, and that's when Martin senses their presence. They want to leave, but Lance wants a little bit more time before they run. The agents explode the bomb, triggering a violent shootout as they get close to the main area. They breach the inner entrance, and as they are going through the rooms, Lance, Martin, and Johanna escape using a ladder. They run through a hallway, shooting any agent that gets close. Then Lance gives Martin a map and tells him to follow the symbols because he must stay and fight, and they escape through a hatch. Ray finally gets out of his car and makes his way into the compound when they run into Lance and a fight starts between the two. Lance tries his best by putting Ray in a chokehold, but Ray's partner stops him with a gun, who is in turn caught by Andre, who escapes with Lance by taking Ray's car. Under the compound, Martin and Johanna are walking through the halls and find the location on the map. The hatch is found by Ray, who decides to follow them through it. Martin and Johanna find a way out, but they're deep in the woods and stop when they reach a wall. Martin suddenly has a vision of a crying baby because he's communicating with the alien and now knows where to go. Meanwhile, Ray finds the map, and along with his partner, they start to follow it to find Martin and Johanna. The two follow the wall until they get to a seemingly closed-off spot. Martin finds a small opening, and they crawl through while they're being chased by Ray. They are in an abandoned city where the Chosen and the hybrids have been living. Martin and Johanna remember being here before, but they're being stalked by something in the buildings. At the same time, Ray and his men have found the wall and are going to go inside. Marin finds Flora with her baby, but the baby has green eyes and starts talking to Martin. Then he turns to find Terry and hugs her very tight because he is very ecstatic to find her. That's when he hears the explosion that Ray made to go through the gate. Terry tells him to go to the Alpha 1, while Flora and Terry head away to deal with Ray and his men. While Ray and his men make their way through the alien village, they are being stalked by the others who follow them close behind. Ray sees Flora, who comes out to meet him, and he recognizes her. Martin and Johanna find a portal, and he goes down to get closer, but the ground doesn't feel normal under his feet. He walks closer and decides to go through the portal. On the other side, he meets a very tall being who recognizes Martin because he was here before but can't remember. Back outside, where Terry finds her boyfriend, Ray sees her and shoots her with the others shooting at Flora, but she stops the bullets and uses the earth to throw them all across the air and disappear. Alpha 1 tells Martin that the hybrids and their human mothers need to be together and hidden. He then reveals to Martin that Johanna has been his wife all along, and he suddenly remembers everything. As he looks out, he sees that he's actually in an alien city, and remembers that they chose to have their memories erased to protect everyone in their lives. Martin comes back out to find her waiting for him. This was all they're doing, and the symbol was a way they could find their way back to each other. As the movie ends, Alpha 1 saves Terry by taking out the bullet, revealing that she has been a hybrid this whole time. Sometime later, Martin and Terry are driving down the same road again, but with her memories erased so she could be normal again.